Let's get this show on the road. Wherever you are, get in your car and come on down, enjoy a show. If it's your first time, we'll jump on in. By the end of this drive, you'll be a Shavian. No, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, Spike.
Hi, Kelly.
What's going on?
It's the phases. We're into the phases. It was a really wild moment the other day when I left rehearsal and realized for Amadeus, it was our last rehearsal in the rehearsal hall. That felt like such a big moment. Like we won't be back in that room. We now move to the stage.
You blink and you're on to the next part.
And panicking, going, oh gosh, did we make all the right decisions? we really, we can go back on some things, but actually a lot of that, or like that creative decision-making process, there's a whole new level that starts when you move on stage. But there are some things that we may not get a chance to go back on, and you suddenly have to go, oh dear. I hope I did a good. Do you have a favorite part of the process? It's such an interesting journey that we are on. Like from the moment that we walk in on that first rehearsal, which is so oddly nervy. It's such a nervy thing that first day. Yeah. And we hear the play possibly if people do a first reading, which is not necessarily as common as it used to be. But if you go in and you do a first read of the play or that first read through, then you've got these rehearsals, then you leave the rehearsal hall, you get onto the stage, the technical elements start getting layered in, the costumes start getting layered in, and then the audience comes in. And it's such an interesting journey. Do you have like a favorite part, or do you have a moment where you're like, yeah, that actually is really kind of what you look forward to?
Yeah. There's so many. Well, probably the most exciting part consistently is always getting the gig. Like that when that email comes in, it's like, oh, this is what I get to do.
You cannot underestimate that moment.
Oh, there's nothing but possibilities ahead. And it's like, it's so exciting because it's like you've been hoping, you've been waiting, you've been thinking, okay, maybe this one's gonna take. And then you get that email. It's like, okay, yeah, that's so definitely that first offer. But then as far as like in the room, well, first day is really special. Our music director, Paul Sportelli, every year would quote Neil Monroe, who was a fixture, a mainstay of this festival back in the day. And he said that we are never going to be as naive about this play as we are right now. And I think there's something really special about that, because it's, people say the words for the first time. You hear the words for the first time. You imagine what this world that we are all going to be creating together is like for the first time. And there's something really powerful, I think, in that naivete. But then, you rehearse, you spend the time in the hall, you spend the time, fretting over blocking and lines and hitting the right pitches and all that. And that I find, for me, one of my favorite parts is getting into costume. The costumes, the design of the show, for me, informs so much. It's that final layer, that final piece about both what this world is and who this character that I'm playing is. Because it's one thing to show up in my sweats and my hoodie and, pretend that I'm, living in the 18th century or whatever I happen to be doing that season. But to actually embody the work that has been put in by our wardrobe department and to feel what that's like to be in the space with everyone else in those costumes. Yeah, I think for me, that's one of my favorite parts.
I have to agree. It is a beautiful thing when you watch people come out, because again, here we have that opportunity to have not just the clothing in the costumes, but the wigs and even makeup and the way that, all the hats and the gloves and the parasols and, things that really come forward into the space, the finishing touches of the set and all of the pieces as we head towards that first audience coming in. And I just think when you watch the incredible transformation of some of those characters that you've been in the hall with And suddenly they come out, like you say, in those costumes for the first time. And you're looking at Julie, of course, who's been in the rehearsal hall. And then this wonder comes out, and you see the design, and you see the designers seeing all of that being brought to life as they come out onto the stage. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful moment, I think, of all of those components. And then the lights coming in, which always affect, again, color and the way that we see things in shadows and light, and just that final layering in of all of those pieces it's a really thrilling moment. I think that's one of my favorite parts. And then, of course, curtain goes up with that first audience there, and let's see what we got, let's see how this goes, and who knows, hope we get that laugh where we or we hope we get that gasp, or things that we have been feeling in the hall, and just seeing, okay, let's see what happens now that we have the missing piece, which is that audience in the room with us, which is really exciting. But the thing I also have to reflect on, which is why I'm so happy to pull back the curtain on the work of how to organize these moving parts.
Oh, boy.
I look at what we call the daily. So the daily is literally the schedule that comes out every evening before the next day and tells everybody where they need to be and at what time. Everything from fittings to coaching sessions to dialect sessions to rehearsals to certain specific calls, maybe even media interviews or meetings that are happening or tours or things that are workshops that are going on. There is a daily schedule that goes out. And I look at that and I go, how?
Yeah.
How does this get put together? And Lisa Russell, our goddess of production management, who maintains the who needs to be where, when, with a huge team of people that work with her to make that happen. We are going to talk to her about what this role entails and how her work as a stage manager for a long time with productions across Canada, how that has informed how she looks at literally the bigger picture of how we operate as the ensemble and as the work that's taking place here.
So let's go talk to Lisa now.
My name is Lisa Russell. I'm the production stage manager at the Shaw Festival.
Lisa, what does that mean? I mean, that's a huge question. I know that is a huge question. And I don't want to, induce some sort of trauma response. But it is an all-encompassing job, and I'm sure that has various parts. But what does it mean to be the production stage manager here at the Shaw Festival?
Well, I'll start with what does it mean to be a stage manager. The story that I always like to use is that when my niece was 3 years old, and she's now in her 20s, so I've been using this for 2 decades, she asked me, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a stage manager. Oh, well, what's that? And I thought, well, how do I explain this in a way that a 3-year-old will understand? And I said to her, after some thought, I said, well, I work with people who play pretend, and I keep track of all of their pretend things. The other thing I say about stage management is that we are, if you think of a wagon wheel with all of the center portion and then all of the spokes that go out to the outer wheel, stage management are that center part of the communication wheel. So we interact with all of the departments working on a production and make sure that everyone knows what they need to know, they have what they need to have, and they are where they need to be when they need to be there. So that's sort of the core of stage management, I would say. And so as a production stage manager, you multiply that by however many shows there are in the season. So 10 shows, 14 shows. So you can imagine how exponentially large that wheel is. So as a production stage manager, I don't have as much direct connection to each individual show. So I'm not the person responsible for communication for individual shows, that falls to the stage management team working on that show. But as the production stage manager and the production stage management team that I work with, we support the stage management teams for all of those productions. We also do support the production elements, the designers, front of house, marketing. We work a lot also with our education, outreach, and community engagement department team, and to help facilitate some of the programming that they do. So we work with everyone across the organization. We are focused a lot on scheduling. So we work this year, so we're in 2026, and we'll be working on Jeff Cummings is already working on the 2027 season, and we're involved in future planning, but then we're also involved in the day-to-day daily schedule. So my team produces the daily schedule each day.
All right. This is where I wanted to ask you about the daily. I know that there is a weekly that goes out at the end of each week. We get the next week schedule, but then we get the daily. What goes into creating that document every single day?
So we use a program called Arts Vision at the Shaw Festival. And so that's where all of our information is contained in terms of a day's events. But that's just a start and an end point of a rehearsal. So, for example, it would say Willows is in the Jackie Maxwell Studio Theatre from 1 to 4 p.m. Well, that's great, but what's actually happening for the actors between 1 to 4 p.m.? So the stage managers for each show work with their directors to submit a daily schedule for us. So we ask them to send it to us by 3:30 the day before. So we get all of the schedules from the individual shows, and so we compile that information. We also are we have a fitting request form, which is a big Google Doc that the wardrobe department uses and also the wig department uses. So our coordinators for the shows, our heads of those departments, they put in the fitting requests. The other element that we're looking at for the actors specifically is classes. So they can sign up to do voice and dialect classes, or they can do Alexander classes or movement classes with you. And so they sign up online, and we take that information and then we start putting the puzzle pieces together. So the rehearsal calls go in first, and then we look at what time in the day the actors who are requested for fittings or the actors who have requested classes, what time do they have left in their day where we can fit in those other activities.
Holy. And who do you have helping you with all of this?
So I'm very grateful. I have a team there's 4 of us in total. So there's myself, and then Lee McClimate is my associate production stage manager. And then we have 2 apprentice stage managers who work with us in the office as well. And this year that's Jamie Anderson and Beatrice Friedman.
Wow.
And for the apprentice position, we have 2. So the idea is that each year we have a returning apprentice, and then we have an incoming apprentice. So hopefully there's always an apprentice in the office who has the experience of the season before.
Right.
Which is incredibly helpful.
Right. Very essential in terms of just inputting and all those puzzle pieces, and how do you actually go enter all of these things and sort through all of those pieces.
Yes. And a little side note about that as well, I was talking to a former student of mine about the apprentice position. The other advantage for that individual is to have 2 years of growth.
Right.
So it's not just about us having the benefit of their knowledge, which is really important, but also what can they get from that second year of experience as well.
So there's a real knowledge sharing. This is almost, again, like so many of the other pieces and parts that we have here at the Shaw Festival, there is an educational element. There is a training element that those hours that you put in and the skills that you're learning actually do roll forward and actually help you to progress.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So my final question for you, Lisa, within the chaos and the joyful chaos, for the most part, do you have a little favorite moment or a little favorite something that you love when all of these pieces do come together? Is there something within the season that you either look forward to or really give you a sense of pride in the work that you and your team have been doing?
Oh, that's a really tough question. Because to pick one thing, I think, is difficult. So what I would say overall across the breadth of the season, for me, it's helping to facilitate the work to succeed, whatever that work may be. So whether that's a production on stage or as simple as, okay, someone needs a space for an event, to book a room for an event, and there's no space available when we look at Arts Vision and look at the room view. But wait a second, if I shift this over here and I juggle this and I negotiate this with this person, can we find a space? Can we help facilitate something making its way to fruition?
Mm-hmm.
That for me brings me joy. It also brings me frustration and gives me gray hair. But when we're successful, that's important to me. On a more granular daily basis, when we talk about the daily schedule, once we've inputted all of the information, we check people's days. So we look at the cutter's days, we look at the designer's days, we look at the actor's days, and looking at everyone's days and making sure that we've done the best that we can for each individual person within that large picture, and also seeing in Arts Vision no conflict errors, no conflict flags coming out. It's very satisfying to go, there are no conflicts.
We did it.
Yes.
Oh, Lisa, you are someone who, I wish I said this many times. I think I need a stage manager for my life so often. And thank goodness for you, because working here with the kinds of days that we do have, you are and your team are the stage managers of our lives. So we just really do appreciate all of the attention and the detail and the work that you all put into helping this machine run as smoothly as it can. So thank you for all of your work and efforts, and thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you. It was absolutely my pleasure.
Hi, it's Neil Barclay with this week's trivia question. It took 30 years for Ohio State Murders to make it to Broadway, and when it did, it starred this 6-time Tony Award winner, who has won in every acting category she's been eligible for. Who is she? We'll tell you later in the episode.
Today we are talking to Philip Akin and Sophia Walker about Ohio State Murders. Philip Akin is a multiple award-winning director and a mentor to many. He has directed many other shows here at the Shaw Festival, including The House That Will Not Stand, Gem of the Ocean, Trouble in Mind, and Master Harold and the Boys. He has also directed at places like the Grand Theatre, the Harold Green Jewish Theatre, and Canadian Stage.
And Sophia Walker is in her 3rd season here at the Shaw. This year you'll see her in Ohio State Murders and Brandon Jacobs Jenkins' new work in progress. Other credits here include The House That Will Not Stand, Sherlock Holmes and the Mystery of the Human Heart, Just to Get Married, and Gem of the Ocean. You may have also seen her elsewhere at Canadian Stage, Crow's Theatre, Stratford, or on your TV screens in Law & Order Toronto, Shadowhunters, and The Murdoch Mysteries.
I went to an arts high school. I went to Cardinal Carter Academy for the Arts. And when I found out about this art school through my grade 7 teacher, Mrs. Baldessera, she's the only teacher that I really remember her name growing up because she had such an impact on me. But she told me about an art school. And I was going to I initially auditioned for the school as a visual artist because I was always making sketches for my brother. He loved the Ninja Turtles, and I would do these drawings for him. And I got really good at it. And then she told me about this art school, but it was out of my district. And it just so happened that the parent-teacher interviews were happening at the same time. So when I came home and told my parents, Mom, Dad, the teacher told me about this special school I could go to that only special kids with real talent get to go to. And they had no interest because they were like, it's so far away.
Oh, right.
You're practically going downtown. And the parent-teacher interviews happened, and my teacher was able to convince my parents to let me apply.
Wow.
So when I applied, I'd gone with the idea of I'm going for visual arts. So I put this whole package together with these sketches I had made, and I had to do a presentation. And in the presentation, someone said, wow, you have such a voice. Have you ever thought about acting? And I'd never thought about acting. But I was always just so creative. And then I auditioned for the drama program, and it was just games. We were just playing, and I was like, oh, wow, people can do, oh, okay. And then I got into the program and started doing that through high school. And again, being in an art school, you're surrounded by kids who were already working professionally. So then I started thinking, well, I want an agent. I want that too. So really, it was because I wanted my parents' approval. I loved the idea of like, look at me. I could be a star too.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it started at the arts high school.
Okay, so you graduate.
I graduate.
What was that first moment of stepping out into that professional world? Like, what were some of those first shows that sort of started to cross your path?
Well, going to, it was called Ryerson University at the time, now Metropolitan University, but I remembered in my last year, it was all about places like the Shaw Festival, Stratford Festival, as places where when you get out of theater school, those are the places that you want to apply to first. So like everybody, I did what everybody else did. It sounds amazing. And I'd gone to the library and found these books about all of these amazing performers who had been there and were there. And I think the first time standing on the festival stage was epic. The surround sound, hearing my voice hit and come back. I think that had such an impact on me that I thought, I think I made the right choice.
Yeah. All right, Philip, I know this is, going back a little ways, but in the deep recesses of your memories, and well, heck, invent them if you want to.
Wow. Yeah.
How did theater cross your path? When did that moment happen?
I was a young teenager, I guess. My brother Leighton and I were voracious readers, and we kind of read every book in the children's section of the Oshawa Public Library. So we would take our mother and father's library card, and every Saturday we would go down to the library, take the bus down, and with an adult card, you could get 12 books each. And so we would get 12 books, 24 books, bring them all home with us, spend Saturday afternoon and the rest of the week reading, rinse and repeat every week. And then I heard about a club that if you joined it was a book club, that if you joined it, you would get to take first pick of each new book that came in. So that was also great. But that was a bait and switch. Really, they did plays. And new books didn't come in that often, but they were going to do a play. So they did a play called Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, of which I decided I would do. I dragooned all of my friends into either acting or helping with it. And that was the first show that I did, right? And then I guess I've said this often, quarter joking, that I really got into the arts because if people liked me, they wouldn't kill me. And so I used to, I say quarter joke because I kind of believed it at the time. And so, the high school drama club, I saw my first professional show, and it was a touring company. I wish I could remember the name, but I thought it was magnificent. And they did a noon-hour performance of Poison, Passion, and Petrifaction by this little-known author, playwright, George Bernard Shaw. And it was amazing.
It was just amazing. I was enthralled by it. And the moment, I just remember this guy standing on a stool holding a piece of drywall over his head, and yet it was this whole Victorian room. And
Wow.
that really impacted me. So
And what was because again, you've had such a prolific career as an actor and now also as a director. Were you always kind of doing both, or did you go, first into that acting world and then transition into directing?
Oh no,
Or what was that
I
journey?
was actor man for as many years as possible. My agent Shari Caldwell, many times over the years, would say to me, "Philip, you've got to do more than act. You're too smart just to be an actor," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Yeah, no, this is an easy life, right? Like I just wait for the phone to ring, show up, do my thing, go home. I'm good." So I didn't start out to be a director.
So what was it about what drew you into directing?
It was happenstance. It was a playwright named Joseph Jomo Pierre, and he writes plays from a very black male-centric Scarborough voice, and he had some plays around Obsidian, and I really liked his plays, and I thought we should do them, so I would recommend them to Alison Seeley Smith, our artistic director at the time. And she was like, like this doesn't feel right for me. And so it became that every time a play by Joe came up, people would say no. Like Allison would say no, Wayne Mangesha would say no, and I would say yes. And it was just because, Joe was a dude and I liked him. He liked me. I loved his stories. They were challenging. They were confrontational. They spoke with a really powerful black male voice. And so I ended up directing his stuff. And then, I don't know, then I was a director.
And then it happened.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Sophia, when did the Shaw Festival cross your path?
Because of this man, Philip Akin. It's so funny that you just ended that talking about Joseph, because one of the first things I auditioned for. So back in the day, your fourth year at Metropolitan University, Ryerson, you would do these general auditions. And I remember having to go downtown to a theater, and you would have your resume and photo. Your photo was attached to your resume, and you'd come out on the stage, and all of these papers would flip with your face, and you'd have to do a monologue in front of all of these people because you were trying to get an agent.
God, such a nightmare.
And Philip came out to one of those, and that was the first time I got connected to Philip, and Philip asked me to audition for one of Joseph's plays.
Wow.
And that was the first time that we got connected. And we have been in each other's lives since then. So the fact that I came here, it's because of Philip.
Actually, there was one connection before that. You just never knew about it.
Really? What? Okay.
Because when I was doing those Theatre Ontario auditions,
Yes.
I was also bird dogging for my agents, and I would call them up with the people that I thought were really good actors and people they should sign ahead of all the other agents. And
Oh, no.
there were in between all the schools graduating in your year, there were two of you and Cara Ricketts, that I thought were the best
Yes.
actors out of those years. And so I called my agent and told her that she needed to sign you.
Oh my gosh, Philip.
Philip
This is like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it was interesting because, it was also, but this talks a little bit about the perniciousness of mentality in the industry, is that all of a sudden, then the conversation became, oh, well, that's two young black women. Could I sign two, all of that kind of stuff. And I gotta admit, I mean, and I really loved my agents. That they're amazing people. But I said, if they were two white girls, one was a redhead and one was a blonde, you wouldn't have any issue with signing them. And I said, these are two
Right.
very, very different actors. They're both hugely talented, and I really think you gotta kind of have a thought.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't supposed to tell you all that.
Please, now we're well.
Since I'm at the back end of my career, I can tell everything now.
All the secrets are coming out. Wow,
I didn't know that.
You remember that phone
Wow,
call you made for
Philip.
me just when you were going in for your Stratford audition? Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's been like that, right?
That, yes.
It's not just
yes.
us hiring each other and stuff. I think what's been brilliant about Sophia and I is that we've had a really, really long-lasting foundational relationship. And over all that time, learning to speak each other's language. So when we're in rehearsal now, we do have this great language between the two of us, even though I can be really obscure at times. And I think, and that started before we even knew each other. It was, it's a relationship that's been building since Theatre Ontario.
Yeah.
Gosh. Philip Akin,
Yeah.
I feel like you just weave your way into so many lives, and you create these opportunities for so many people to really come into their own sense of self. Like you have such a legacy of opening those doors, but the support and the mentorship and the way you inspire people to keep going, to work through the difficult days, but to keep your eye on the ball and to create those incredible opportunities. I find that is so deeply reflected in the art you create as well. So who you bring in for your team, who you are bringing in to actually go through these journeys of these plays, it just cultivates such a deep, trust-filled, creative environment where people can really feel they can do their best work.
Well,
And I
thank
think that those opportunities that you provide for all of us, but to think that you've had your claws, you have your fingers in a long time.
No, I mean, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Although sometimes the word legacy bothers me because I kind of feel that's what they put on marble when they lay it on top.
Well, they've got your name on that legacy award now, so
I
you're
know.
stuck.
I know. And that was kind of my idea, but it wasn't. Anyway, it's not here's the thing. It's not a one-sided street. Right? Like it's such a two-way street. Y'all got to understand, like being in the room with these artists, like being in the room with Sophia is such a joy. Right? I go into rehearsal every day knowing that we're going to work and we're going to grow and I trust her implicitly. And then I get to meet new people who I don't know. Right. And bring them along into the same thing. And so I just want to make sure it's like working with all of these people is rich and it's full, and it's to give opportunity to have our set and costume designer, Melanie McNeil, on this project is so fulfilling to me. I mean, she and I did a show called Shakespeare's Nigga by Joseph Jomo Pierre. And it's the only real show that I've ever directed that I want to go back and redirect because I had really great ideas and didn't have myself the craft to make those ideas full and rich. And Melanie was on that with me and put up with my things about, she should be wearing like a 1800s plantation skirt, and it should be see-through, and it should be plastic. And anyway, there was a lot.
I love it. I love these windows inside your head.
But to be able to bring her up to Shaw and to work together years later is a treat.
So let's talk about Ohio State Murders. And I sort of have where to begin with the play, where to begin with the playwright, where to begin with producing it here at the Shaw Festival and bringing it to the stage here. And I'm wondering, maybe Sophia, if, again, there are many people who are listening to this podcast right now who won't know this play, right? There's probably quite a few. And it's difficult to sort of articulate almost exactly what it's about. But I'm wondering, what are some of the aspects of the play that you have gained, and what is it as much as you can, what is Ohio State Murders about?
I mean, the simplest way to just say what it is, this is a celebrated writer. She has been asked to come back to Ohio State. She's a graduate of Ohio State University, and she's been asked to come back and give a talk about her work. She is a successful writer, and she's come back to share with an audience, to lecture to an audience about what inspires the imagery in her work. And she takes you on this journey through this play to talk about it, but also truly talk about where it comes from. And it's actually very personal. It's rooted in some real trauma from what happened while she was going to that university. And Adrienne Kennedy, this is a semi-autobiographical play. Adrienne did herself apply to be an English major and was denied. She got the runaround because they didn't allow Black students to become English majors. So she was forced to get her BA in elementary education. They say that this is the most conventional of her work. She's quite abstract. And I find even in this play that it is so far from conventional, but it is the closest. And I wonder sometime if that is why we don't see a lot of Adrienne's work. Academics really love her work. It is so dreamlike. It's so surreal. But what's fascinating about Adrienne is she pulls so much from her personal life and puts it on the paper. I mean, Suzanne Alexander is going to Ohio State and wants to be an English major and is dealing with a lot of racism at the school. And the fact that there were places on the university grounds that Black students were discouraged from going. These were things that Adrienne herself directly dealt with. But also she has such a love for the Bronte sisters. She loves Betty Davis. She has a love for music. And all of that, she fills her plays with that. She talks about in her past, she and Joe, her husband, they're now divorced, but she met Joe at Ohio State. So it's this fantastical thing of, is this just her creating? Is this her personal life? So I've been really thrusted into trying to learn more about Adrienne the writer.
And Philip, what drew you to doing this play, and what is it about this play that you're discovering as you are in the rehearsal hall with it?
I blame Tim Carroll.
It's good to blame him for most things, I think.
I know.
Yeah, that's good.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, TC and I have got a great relationship. I mean, he's a buddy. I think I don't know. I've said this often that after a certain age, you don't think you're going to make friends anymore. And so I was really surprised that TC and I have become such good friends. And one of the things that means is that he finds these wonderful plays. I mean, I send him stuff all the time, but he finds these jewels and then, kind of says, so would you like to do Ohio State Murders? And there you go. And so that's when I learned of it. And on my first readings of it, rarely have I been so incredibly wrong about a piece. Because it felt, when I read it, it felt really academic. It really felt like from the golden age of Black, playwriting, in the 60s or 50s, it felt very Lorraine Hansberry-ish, but not. And I just kind of, okay. And boy, was I wrong, and so that was a delight. It's a really rich, complex play. The more we work on it, the more levels we find. In my head, I guess, because I think in images a lot, I think of it as a decoupage play, and it's not linear. And it time loops on itself. We go back and forward in time. Things get repeated, and you go, why are we repeating that? And so it's a kind of a play where you put out each element in the moment as clearly as possible, and it requires the audience to stitch it together in a way. So maybe it's more like a quilt than decoupage, right? But the pieces get put out, and then the audience has to come along with us and stitch it together and go, oh, we're listening to Thomas Hardy now. We're like, and trying to find there's sections of which, there's readings of Hardy and the play of Arthur, or the poem of Arthur, etc. And reading written literature is really a thing. It's really a thing. It's like, but this was meant to be read. It wasn't necessarily meant to be read out loud. Maybe it wasn't even meant to be read in a theatrical context. How do you make that work? What is the link? So all of these things, these immense, wonderful challenges has grown out of this play that I kind of thought was a little staid. So never have I been happier to be more wrong than I am now.
The more we get to be in the rehearsal hall playing with it, the more I can't help but think about, when someone asks you a question about something pivotal in your life, and it's a big story, and you're like, okay, where do I start? And then as you start to tell the story, you can't help but remember as you're telling it, oh yeah, and then I remember that day we went to that restaurant, and then we stopped. Oh, and then when we sat on the bench and that man came over. Okay, but then I'm going to tell you but then, so then this was, and it feels a bit like that, in that Suzanne Alexander is the character who's telling the story in Ohio State. And she's coming with the intent of, I've been asked this one thing, but then it just unravels into so much more. And she is trying to stitch all of these pieces together. And, with the guidance of Philip, we talk about, stitching and sort of starting one place, having that kernel in the back of your mind and holding on to that because you know where you're going, but you can't go there yet. But along the way, you also have all of these other mushrooms that start blooming, and you have to give room for that spot, but then go back because at the back of your mind, you know where you have to go. And what's so exciting is in this play, every moment is so full. I could sit in this one moment, revel with this, but I can't. I have to move on because I know where I have to go. And the point is, I brought you all here to tell you about what inspires my work. But what inspires my work is when I was a kid, I loved listening to this. I also really loved this book. I loved this moment, but I know where I have to go. And past and present. So it's like remembering who I am now in this moment, but then, when I was a kid, I loved this. And that ping-ponging is also just in its own, just trying to understand, how do I feel? Because her stories are so full, they're so emotional, and the imagery is so intense. So it hits me, and then I have to be able to let that moment land, but then go on to the next thing. But they're all so full. So if you trust, in this moment, I just said something that was a gut punch, but then there is the beautiful music, and then the flowers. It's just, let's keep going. It's just, it's these little paper cuts, and then you're like, but that's okay. Let's keep going.
That's such, like, watching it in rehearsal, that is exactly what it feels like.
Gosh.
It's like, but no, we're not. That is just what that is. We are still progressing forward. Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing too about the play, I semi-jokingly say it's 35 pages long, and Sophia has 28 or 29 of the pages all to herself, right? So the girl has to work all the way through this. And Andre Morin is the other actor in this, who I didn't know before this process, but has been, equally wonderful to work with. I think it has to be said that, originally the play was written for 7 people. When it was done on Broadway, it was done by 5 people, and we're doing it with 2 people. And so you have to change some of the conceits around it to make it workable. So originally, and this is the thing, we often throw away stage directions that are written in the scripts because stage directions just represent the biggest show, like how they did it. It's a marker for some theaters and some people just to replicate a show. The biggest change that I think we've made is that the stage directions of this script says she is rehearsing her speech for the next day. And then that gives you an entree into, I'm rehearsing it, therefore I can go back in memory, I can conjure these people, I can remember. And so the other 5 other people, 6 other people can arise in her memory in a way. And because we're doing it with only 2 people, and instead of doing it as a rehearsal for her speech, we're doing it as her speech in the moment. And so that makes, the audience for the speech. And so these jump backs, we have to figure it out a little bit differently. We have to conjure people a little differently. And it's not, nobody's putting on hats and becoming different people. The other characters in the play, may only have 3 lines. And so how do we conjure them? How do we make them real? And so it's a subtly different kind of excursion in our production.
And I'm just wondering where was the inspiration between you and Melanie to the set design is really powerful. What was that like to find? It's always that interesting question of you read this play and somehow a set design comes out of the language that's on the page. What was that like? I'm just wondering where the inspiration for the set. And now as we integrate again the conversations with sound and with lighting, that there almost a presence in the performance and in the production as well.
Yeah. Part of that is driven by the Jackie Maxwell Studio Theater. It's a theater in the round. This is my 4th play in the round there. Thankfully, this is the 4th one because I learned a little bit each time. And that space is a wonderfully unique space. And the constraints on that space are not actually constraints. They're not problems. They are massive opportunities to change the artistic thinking in your head. And that's what I've learned as this is the 4th show, is how this show would be done in a proscenium. All the shows I've done in there are supposed to be proscenium shows, but they can't be. And so it's not a constriction on the space as it is that it makes you recognize the constriction in your head. Artistically, what walls have you built up? If I'm saying, oh no, Ohio State has got to be done in a proscenium, and it's got to be this, and we have to have a real library. All of that has to go out of the window, all of it. And so you have to set your imagination free in a different way. And so Melanie and we would go out for lunch. We would be like, where do you want to go have breakfast today? And we'd show up. And she showed a number of different ideas and came up with the precursor to what we have now. In my head, and I don't mean, because sometimes I make quips faster than I should, but in my head, I always think of it as kind of like Scandinavian lobby furniture, right? But I heard it referred to last week as a ribbon, and I went, "Oh, that's a much better. That sounds more artistically compatible than lobby furniture." But it was like a kind of based on all of that and kind of Mobius-like, and it's just the curves and abstract to the point where we could have 30, 40 locations all with a shift of a hip. And that was really, really exciting. And so it means now that sound and light have to carve up the space in a very different way. And in fact, in rehearsal, I find myself saying now, okay, listen, here's what the lights are going to be like here. So you don't have to create it all out of nothing. You'll do a turn, a light will come up. So, and the light will carve a bit of the path through there.
And how do you interact with that, Sophia? Because we do have a couple of those elements, but how do you start to fold that into the work that you're doing within rehearsals?
Some of it already, I can already imagine what it is and how it can really help impact. Like there's a moment in the play when she's talking about seeing a movie that she, for the first time, had never seen and the impact it had on her. And I can already see how impactful the lighting and the swirling of the sound, that I'm starting to integrate that into my movements already. And just walking this space, walking that ribbon, and the switches that I'm making, I'm already seeing clearly how that can help. And so with that support, it's also helping me to trust that the audience will understand the shift that's happening in this moment. It's not all on me. I think sometimes the first couple cracks at just getting up and trying to make it work, I thought, how do I make this distinct? That I'm here, but then I have to move over here. Because again, I don't have props. We don't have set changes. Everything is happening on this ribbon in this space. But what is so fantastic is we've already been able to cut pieces into, that's the car, that's the bed. I can already see it. So now it's just exciting to actually see the lights and how that's going to just add that in because I can already see it.
Can I also say, too, because you always ask people like me, like, where did you get this inspiration? Melanie, where did you get this? And I got to say, that's great. And it's all honest and fabulous. But I got to do a shout out to the people in the carp shop and the construction team on this. And I've always said that, I think Shaw has some of the best people, best creators, best production creators I've ever seen. And the way they have bent plywood to create the shapes.
Unbelievable.
And we look at it and we just go, and oh yeah, sure, wood bends that way. We don't have to think about it, but it doesn't. And I remember going to the shop, and then working to learn how to do it, how to make it curve, how it didn't work, how they had to do this again. And so a huge shout out to those guys who have made this beautiful flowing structure. And I'm amazed. And then I go, how does that all hook together? And how does it come apart? And it's like tickety boo. And then I'm like, oh, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
I laughed the first time that I read in a designer's contract that they could design whatever they wanted, but it didn't mean that it was structurally safe or secure. And I went, oh, and that's what your production manager and TD have to do is say, no, you can't have a cantilever wing because it will fall over and kill the audience. And So there's
Just the minor details, minor
Yeah.
details.
yeah, but big props. I think oftentimes that part of the team gets overlooked, and they shouldn't. Even down to the paint treatment on it is so remarkable, and I know how it's going to change in the different light. And so big ups to those peeps.
You're right, Philip. I mean, we get so spoiled. We're so blessed to have the things that we ask for. We don't even think about how it's done. It's just, it
Yeah.
always happens. It always just works. Yeah. No, it's amazing.
So, okay, final question for both of you. And I know we're in the rehearsal process at this point. By the time this airs, we will be, my gosh, I can't believe it, but in previews at this.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I know. Don't worry. Still a while away. No panicking. But I'm just wondering, for someone who is listening to this podcast and they might be looking at coming to see Ohio State Murders, when you think of the production and the play, is there something that they should look out for? Is there a little Easter egg or a particular moment that actually resonates with you that you just want to sort of highlight and see? Just keep an eye out for this, or have a listen when someone says this. You can totally take a second to think about it. And just what would be something that people could watch for?
I would ask them to watch that for a play called Ohio State Murders, where have we woven in humor? Because it is those threads of humor that come out in all of its forms, wryness, just it's not in essence it's not yucks. I mean, but it's a leavening, you make bread and it's, water, flour, salt, and yeast, basically. But the kind of yeast and that leavening agent, not all bread is leavened. I mean, I'm not going to get into baking here, but, just that idea of the leavening of humor through that, and it's delicate, but it's so necessary. Plus, frankly, some really amazing tour de force acting. I hope I didn't just embarrass you.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, I think before I can answer it, I have to say one thing that I find so beautiful about Adrienne is I've listened to some interviews with her, and there is such a childlike sense of wonderment that has never left her. And she has talked about the first of things in her life. She traveled with her family and they went to Madrid, they went to England, they ended up in Liberia, and they just did this big travel on the Queen Mary as a family that was just traveling. And she said it was an unusual thing for a Black family to travel and just to travel and the places they saw. And she said, a first you never forget. It is monumental. And I find the moments, I guess I'm stealing a little bit of what Philip's saying, but the moments of beauty in her life, to really appreciate the moments of beauty. I think that when life gets hard or when we talk about difficult things, especially in this day and age, it's easy to sit with the dark. And when we are asked to look at the light, it becomes this fluttering thing like, yeah, there's that. But when you really allow yourself to actually sit in the light, there is a balancing that happens that helps you to keep going. As heavy as things can be, those moments when she laughs, when you hear Adrienne laugh or just talk about the first time she met Ruby Dee, it's just, she's like a little girl again. It's really beautiful. When she was 22, she wrote a story about flowers. And just her love of flowers, it's, finding the beauty,
I am embarrassed to say you've done so much more research than me.
I had to.
But I think it's really because I love this about artistic process. Everybody's got their own process, right? And And
Yeah.
Sophia does this great, I mean, she does deep dives into stuff. And I just kind of go, no, my life is a deep dive. So I'll just pull stuff out of that. Right.
It's so good, Philip, when you're in the room and you tell stories of how you connect to what we're talking about. It just drops me right into it. I think my fear of trying to step in, and the first time I read this play, I just thought, oh my gosh, how do you bring something like this to the stage? I could sit here for hours and pull it apart, but to actually breathe life into it. And Philip has made that possible as we do it. The more we carve it together, the more I'm like, I see it. I can understand how this could grow, and the joy. Because I think that's the thing that hits me the most is the beauty, is because it is so easy to sit in the weight of things and knowing where I have to go. But there is such joy. Yeah.
What a beautiful conversation with two beautiful human beings that I adore. So thank you for taking the time this morning to speak to me about Ohio State murders. And I will see you in the rehearsal hall very soon.
Thank you so much.
And now for the answer to this episode's trivia question. We asked which 6-time Tony Award-winning actress was the star when Ohio State Murders made its long-awaited Broadway debut in 2022. And the answer is Audra McDonald.
Ohio State Murders is playing until October 3rd. Tickets available at shawfest.com.
Thank you to Philip and Sophia for joining us, and thank you, as always, for listening. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to say hello, drop us a line at podcast@shawfest.com.
Let's Get This Shaw on the Road is hosted by Alexis Milligan and produced by me, Kelly Wong. Original music by Travis Cito. If you like what you hear, subscribe and leave us a review.
Next week, we will have a very special episode featuring the one and only Stephen Fry.
We'll see you then.
Let's get this Shaw on the road.